Good afternoon and welcome to our press conference for the Created Equal Gender Justice event at the ACT Assembly. I'd like to thank you all for being here and thank those of you who are watching online as well. It's great to have so many people here interested in gender justice today. We're going to have a half hour for our press conference today, and I'll begin by introducing our panel, and then I'm going to invite each of them to speak for a couple of minutes about their key points around the role of faith-based organizations in gender justice work. And then we'll open it up for questions from the media here. And then when we're finished, if there are still questions that you have or if you'd like interviews, you can speak with Marcelo Schneider, who will try and set up time as it's available for you to speak with our panelists. So I'd like to begin by thanking Dr. Phumzile Mlambo Nguka for being with us from UN Women, Under Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women. And Archbishop Antje Jackelin from the Church of Sweden, the primate of the church here in Sweden. It's great to have you here. And Mr. Rudelmar Bueno de Faria, the General Secretary of ACT Alliance. And Ms. Silwan Sheen Alba, who's a networking and advocacy officer with the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. So Dr. Mlambo Nguka, I'd like to invite you to speak for a couple of minutes about the role of faith-based organizations in gender justice.
Thank you very much.
It's not on.
Mine seems to be on, so I can just share.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's on? Okay.
There we go.
Thanks. Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this very august assembly of our partners, because we already have a relationship with the Alliance. For us as UN Women, this is a formidable partner for the agenda for women to move forward at a time when it is experiencing pushback. Because the church is both an enabler for a move forward, but also a barrier for a movement forward. We need the church in order to minimize the potential pushback and also to build on the historic role that the church has played in pushing forward gender equality. The reality right now is that notwithstanding the great progress that has been made, for instance, since Beijing 25 years ago, we still have 19% of women and girls aged between 15 and 49 who experience sexual violence by intimate partner just in the last 12 months. We still have a situation in the world now where there's 18 countries where husbands can legally prevent their wives from working. We have 39 countries where daughters and sons do not have inheritance rights, and 49 countries where there are no laws that protect women against violence. So just to give you a picture of the size of the problem, we cannot deliver on these things without a faith-based organization being an ally in moving things forward. So in 2020, we will celebrate 25 years of the Beijing platform. We will congregate in a conference of women where women will speak and provide key red lines for the world around which leaders and society has to be accountable so that we can reach 2030 truly with substantive equality. We would see this as a moment where our partnership will also play a critical role, because we should be able to deliver a message that is coherent about how we are changing from within. And changing from within in society also means changing within faith-based organizations who are the custodians of the norms that sustain gender inequality. So for us, this partnership is important for this and many other reasons. And also to make sure that issues where there's big pushback about, such as gender equality itself and gender justice, the recognition of the different sexualities and the respect of people and not discriminating against them because of their sexual equality the investment in issues such as peace and security, and making sure that women caught up in humanitarian situations are serviced and invested in an effective way, are all the issues that connect us together. So we have a long way ahead together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Archbishop, could I ask you to speak next, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. I was very pleased to be part of this special event, Created Equal, on gender justice. And I do think that through the many voices we have sort of seen and being affirmed in being able to say that gender justice means win-win for everybody, because gender just societies will do better than those who are not. Also, I would like to say that gender justice is interrelational. It is, among other things, about masculinities as well, and is also about the web of relations that are intergenerational. And my third point would be, it needs to be about repentance and change. And for faith communities with the firm belief that both repentance and change are possible. And change means both change of laws, change of minds, and change of practices. Now, when it comes to more a theological perspective on gender justice, it is important to say that there is a sound biblical and theological foundations to this. This is not saying that all theologies and all biblical interpretations are on the same page. We know very well that there are huge differences and that there are theologies that are counterproductive. And we need to resist these sort of false theologies that also are used from powers, so to speak, outside the church to be divisive in faith communities. So faith-based organizations and faith communities historically have been part of the problem, and they still are part of the problem. But they have also been part of the solution, and I would say they are increasingly so part of the solution, cooperating across faith communities, also in an interfaith sense, and cooperating also with other organizations, secular organizations, on the basis of human rights. So churches can and do promote women's rights and gender justice on the basis of the gospel.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bueno de Furia.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you after this wonderful event, launching the beginning of our gender campaign called Created Equal. Faith-based organizations like the members of our alliance, historically, they have been playing a meaningful role in humanitarian development work since the beginning. And they play an important role in terms of influencing also communities with moral standards and also norms that orient the life of people. And you know, it was mentioned by Archbishop that the faith communities, they can play both a negative and a positive role in this equation. And we as ACT Alliance, we want to play this positive dimension in terms of promoting human dignity, focusing that in the faith and human rights as our way of working, and also associating that with global political processes that are crucial for faith communities also to be able to contribute in the communities and globally in the changes and life of the people. So we are entering with in our assembly now deciding about the future of our organizations with a new strategic plan that goes for 8 years. And one of the major, and I would like to say the flagship of our work is gender justice, gender equality, because we do not believe that we will be able to advance any, as the Under General Secretary mentioned, we will not be able to make any change in the development SDGs if gender will not be in each one of them. And we, as the world's largest Protestant and Orthodox alliance of churches and agencies working in humanitarian development and advocacy work, we have a capacity that it's very difficult to find in another setting. So we need to use our potential, the work of our members in more than 125 countries, where they are organized in national forums, to use gender as the entry point for us to not work and collaborate, but implement together this new strategy that you want to put in place.
Great, thank you very much. And Ms. Alba.
Let me first speak on the Philippine context so that I can situate the challenge among the youth in our country and even outside. So in the Philippine context, there's a rise of misogyny and sexism, which is being shown by the highest leader of our country, the president. And the challenge now, I just learned the news earlier, that despite of this kind of injustice among women, against women, the popularity rate is still high. It's like 62%. The challenge now for us as young people, being in the technological generation, there are a lot of information that can be seen in social media, in other websites and all. And the challenge for us is on how we can locate the truth about gender justice. And as I see it, young people like us should also take the responsibility to be educated, to know the truth by going down to the communities, going to the toiling masses where the real situation is happening about the injustices that we are just talking about it now, no? And after knowing it, then we can have this good analysis and maybe join the gender justice and social justice more vigorously, because we know what we are trying to fight for. This is an issue that is affecting most young people, and I think young people have the right to do gender justice themselves, because it's really affecting their lives, and it's not just an issue for us. So we must also be seen as someone who is beyond social media, but rather the young people have power to change the injustices that is happening now in this world. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to open it up now for questions. There's a microphone coming.
My name is Christopher Morin. I'm working as a journalist for Church of Sweden magazine, a weekly magazine here in Sweden, covering Church of Sweden's work, mostly. I'll start to ask General Secretary Bueno de Faria, how come that you start this assembly with a gender equality session?
Okay, for us it's important, as in any other event, that we identify what's our DNA, what is the major political issue or topic that we would like to introduce for our discussions. The gender event is just an event that is coming before the Assembly to help and to stimulate and to motivate our members to engage in the discussions that we will have this week on the discussions on our strategy, and how, based on the inputs that we had here today, they will be able to mainstream gender, not only in the gender programmatic thematic areas that we have, but also on climate change, humanitarian work, peace and human security, and migration and displacement. So that was the intention. It's also a political message that we want to pass to our membership, that gender is the flagship for our strategy. That is the intention of having in the beginning.
Several of the speakers have said that the church can be a proactive force in the work with gender justice, but it also can be a negative force. And among the delegates here, you don't think that you can create some bad feelings taking up gender equality? Is everybody agreeing with what you're doing here?
Yeah, the problem actually, historically, and we could say even for the last 2,000 years, we have been trying to do that. And I don't think that you are late, that you are taking things too advanced. I think that you are late in terms of how we will be bringing issues related to gender in the world today. And especially for organizations like ours, that we are based in different contexts and countries, working in humanitarian development and advocacy, where we are facing every day contact with populations and people that are discriminated and are affected by gender inequality. We know that that is one of the big problems that have, and we will not be able to be successful in achieving our objectives as a humanitarian development and advocacy network if we will not address those issues that are undermining this possibility. So we believe that gender, of course, there are different understandings, especially within the faith communities, in terms of the spectrum of the gender issues. But we cannot just be silent and quiet and not to discuss that. We don't want to impose any conception, but we want to create a space, safe space for us to discuss and to see from the narrative of the people who are suffering by gender inequality why we need to engage in a different way. But it's not easy. And to change minds, as the Archbishop mentioned, change minds and attitudes is only possible if you will be pushing for making these changes.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
Okay, I'll go on until somebody stops me. I'd like to ask United Nations Under Secretary General, you are now asking ACT Alliance to be a partner in promoting work for gender equality. Is it a trustworthy partner in the work? I mean, we have talked about churches promoting and working against gender equality. Is it a good partner?
I think they can also ask the same, is the United Nations a trusted partner? Because we both are a reflecting of a society that is struggling with these issues. But the main trajectory within both organizations is an appetite for justice. And where we sign up in a dotted line, all of us are actually signed up for justice and for gender equality. The fact that we have tensions within these institutions does not mean that we are predominantly organizations that are backward looking. But for us, as UN Women specifically, we are also looking at being in discussions, in particular, with people that do not agree with us, because we don't want to continuously preach to the converted, preach to the choir. It is important for us as UN Women not just to work for women activists, feminists alone. We want to work with church and faith-based organizations, the most progressive and the most conservative. We want to work with traditional leaders. We are branching out to work with men and boys. We actually have a campaign called He for She, through which we exclusively work with men and engage men about taking a stand for gender equality. Because in any case, the issue of gender inequality is a men's issue. Because women are doing everything that needs to be done. We just are offering guys an opportunity also to participate and to take a part for themselves, because as Archbishop said, it is a win-win. There's something positive in it for them as well.
But you're not afraid of the churches being a part of the backlash that we are currently seeing?
For the struggles against justice and for noble causes, backlash and the fight is part of what you have to expect. You just have to move forward. Otherwise, I think Jesus would have run away and not even made himself available for everything that he did, if every time you have a problem, you put your head in the sand.
Thank you. I think there was a question over here.
Good evening, sir. I'm Isha Banerjee. I come from India, CASA. I understand that ACT Alliance, along with its partners, is working for a particular kind of communities, the underprivileged and the marginalized community on one hand. But on the other hand, there is a movement going on, Me Too movement, which is not for the underprivileged, but for the privileged class. Women who are not able to speak up, or facing a different kind of discrimination in their office place and workplaces. My question to you is that ACT Alliance, first of all, what is your stand, ACT Alliance's stand on the movement? Second of all, are we looking forward to do any kind of reformative, decisions so that we encourage our partners to implement any strict laws against any harassments in the workplace, so that women, more and more women from the privileged as well as underprivileged communities can work at a safer environment?
Yeah, the world is facing today a very complex situation with polarization, increased populism, and this increased populism comes also together with policies and laws that are undermining the ability for every human being to achieve their human rights. That's part of the backlash that we are seeing in the world today. And unfortunately, in the gains that we have had in the past in many of these issues, especially in terms of empowerment of women and the access to land, to water, and also to job opportunities, that is also in this new political environment that we are facing, the world today, it's destroying, basically. So that is a responsibility for ACT Alliance as one of the part of the civil society and the wider ecumenical movement, for us to play and to strongly, as the Under General Secretary mentioned, because we cannot, every time that you are stopped, we will just give up. We cannot do that. So our work includes to strategically to engage with different stakeholders, the UN, the local communities, the local churches, the National Council of Churches, the global ecumenical organizations like the World Council of Churches and the Lutheran World Federation, for us to engage in issues that lift up, especially the poorest, marginalized, and excluded of the society today. And that is part of our mandate and moral imperative as faith-based organizations. So, it's not easy to do that, but if it will not us doing that together with those like-minded stakeholders, then we will just supporting the opposite side, that excluding people instead of including, and that includes migrants, refugees, and many other sectors of society, and especially women in all of that. from the humanitarian, especially in the migration, refugee displacement situation. Women are the most affected that. And also the inability for them to be able to redo their lives in community and in the society again because of this backlash they have.
Great, thank you. We have time for just one or two more questions.
Hello, my name is Ulrika Weppel. I'm from Sweden, Uppsala. And I was wondering, if you look at this from a gender perspective, what would be some examples or some arguments of things that men are losing out on in this realm of inequality?
I could not speak because of the... What was the question?
The question was, what are some things that men are losing out on in the gender justice situation? Is that correct?
Right.
Was this aimed at a particular panelist, or? Okay, well, why don't we?
Well, I think probably Archbishop would also have something to add about the fact that this is actually a win-win, not a win-lose situation. If you just talk, for instance, about representation of women in leadership and in decision-making, can you imagine how lopsided the decisions that are being taken in the world today because of absence of women in places where decisions that are about all of society are being made? In the commercial sector, organizations and companies that have gender diverse leadership outperform those that only have men. So there is a loss of economic growth and performance in the world. The participation of women just in a field like agriculture, if it were to be taken to the same level as men in terms of the inputs available for women, we would turn around food insecurity in many countries for both men and women. So if women are able to be invested in education every year, that actually changes the possibility for communities to be healthier, for children to stay longer at school, to reduce child marriage. All of those are super benefits for humanity. So men are in good hands, in the hands of women, as they've always been. It is in their best interest to support gender equality, because in any case, investing in women has always had a high rate of return everywhere. Wherever you've invested in women, the benefit for society are actually significant, because women are very inclusive. Whatever they have, they will share with society. We see it in families, we see it in working women. So yeah, win-win.
Archbishop?
Of course, I fully agree, and there is evidence showing that communities that are just and equal fare better than those who are not. So in that, there is a win-win. Also, you can point to that there are traditional patterns of masculinity that are connected with destructive behavior, like domination, violence, sexual practices, alcohol, and so on. So even that contributes to the win-win. And then again, also, gender justice is a cross-cutting issue. I mean, it's not only that it's part of the SDGs. You can look at climate justice, you can look at migration, you can look at conflict, you can look at economic development, and what else? You always see that gender justice actually will make things better, or the other way around, that you have gender injustice there, and it hurts. It hurts, of course, in the first place, women and girls, but in the end, it hurts, of course, also boys and men.
Thank you. Ms. Alba, would you like to add anything from the Philippine context?
Yeah. I think having gender equality is not about women, men under women. It's like if like acts. I I think ACT is doing a political statement that those who are like oppressed, like women, it's this gender event, for me, it's like a political statement that women can. It's like saying to all ACT Alliance members that we have to have equal spaces for men and women. So it's not an issue about who is above or at the top. It's more of the, I know that in our history, for example, in the Philippines, it's in the primitive culture, men and women work collectively without labor divisions. Well, less labor divisions, but there's no discrimination because they contribute equally in the production and the reproduction. No? So when we are colonized by Spaniards and US and Japan and all, that's where the gender injustice came in increasingly. So like for us, for young people, I think for us to overcome those kind of mindsets, we have to decolonize ourselves first as young Filipinos. And we have to go back to our roots where the men and women are working collectively. So that's not only applicable for the Philippines, but also for the world, I think.
Would you like to say anything, Mr. Bueno de Faria?
Well, no, I just agree with all the comments. I think that there is no, in this equation, nobody's losing with gender equality. We are losing if we will not have equality. And we are losing, and very badly. And most of the problems that you see in the world today, coming from decision makings, we talk about the women in leadership in the political space before, they came because of this gender inequality and the participation of, in decision making of those who know better even on how the policies and the decisions that are made are affecting the families and the people in general. So I think that there is no any lose. We cannot create any, I don't believe that we can support any argument that is saying that we will lose economically, socially, culturally, if we will be giving power, equal power for the women. That's impossible to believe. I don't believe that exists evidence-based to say that.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm afraid we've run out of time for questions, so if you do have any further questions, please speak with Marcelo Schneider afterwards, and we'll see if we can find time when you may be able to speak with our panelists. But thank you very much for coming. Thank you for those of you who've joined us online, and we hope that you have a great day.
Thanks. Thank you.
Teleconference with New York, that's why I'm going.